Welcome to Hall County Connection. I'm your host, Nikki Young. On our show today, we're going to meet the K-9 units of the Hall County Sheriff's Office and the Hall County Correctional Institute. The TV-18 crew filmed these crime-fighting dogs in many different training scenarios to show you the ways they contribute to public safety in Hall County. A few months ago, I happened to see some footage of sheriff's dogs in training. They were opening doors with their mouths and practicing an apprehension with a deputy dressed in a really thick padded suit, doing all kinds of amazing things. It's a real accomplishment if I can get my own dog to sit or roll over, so I have a huge amount of respect for the amount of training that goes into these animals, both on the part of the deputies and the dogs. I'm excited about our show today, and I hope you'll be as impressed as I was with these K-9s and their handlers.
Hall County Sheriff's Office, please K-9, come on now, send them my dog, you will get it. Oh, good boy. Get your dog. Get your dog. Get your dog. Get your dog. Alan, loose.
The Hall County Sheriff's Office currently has 5 dog and handler teams that are trained to locate and apprehend serious offenders, sometimes violent. In doing that, it can be a pretty complex task. So our job as trainers is to create scenarios that would expose the dog to as many different scenarios and different barricades and stuff that we can in order to prepare them for an actual deployment. Building searches can be dangerous for the handler and any other human officers that are going into a building because there's so many places the suspect can hide. He can hide high, he can hide low, he can hide in dark corners, but it's hard to hide from these dogs because they use most of their sense of smell to locate these guys. So what we might walk right past a suspect lying underneath a blanket, for instance, it's not going to escape these dogs. So what we do is we deploy these animals into the building to locate these violent offenders after a search, and it's a lot safer for us.
Out! Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands or we'll send the dog.
As I mentioned before, chasing human targets can be complex in the real world. And we've got to remember that we're dealing with animals. So simple things to us like fences, hedgerows, natural barriers, to a dog seems like an impassable object. Again, our job as trainers is to create scenarios and situations in which these dogs can overcome these obstacles and negotiate these barricades on their own. Animals tend to learn, and if they learn on their own, if they develop problem-solving skills with as little assistance from us as we can give them, they tend to retain that knowledge a lot longer. We got to remember that a lot of these dogs this one here is almost 90-something pounds, so jumping a fence is a pretty daunting task for him. Dogs are just like people, they're built different. As you can see in this clip, this dog is a lot more agile, he's a lot slimmer, so negotiating the fence would be a little bit easier for him than it would be a big 100-pound guy. And we try to develop these training scenarios in stages. If the dog is having a distinct problem negotiating the fence, we'll set up the obstacle or the barricade close to the target, which is the decoy. That would accomplish a couple of different goals. It'll motivate the animal to negotiate the problem on his own. And as I mentioned before, that's the way they learn the best. Secondly, it'll give a foundation that we can work with for later scenarios. It's amazing to watch the learning ability of these guys. Once they figure a problem out, it's almost like we never have to worry about that thing again. Like these dogs that are negotiating this fence and clearing it with ease, when we get in the real world, if a suspect jumps a fence, we won't have to worry about the dog stopping and not jumping the fence in pursuit of that suspect. Our dogs range from an experience level from 6 months to 4 years. So we got to keep that in mind when we develop our training scenarios. Some of these animals they don't have the problem-solving skills that a more mature animal would, just simply because of their age, they're inexperienced. So it's our job as trainers to develop scenarios that will ease the dog in developing those problem-solving skills on its own. One of the things that we use is what we call an escaping decoy. As you can see here, this decoy is a lot farther from the fence than originally. So it looks to the dog like their toy is escaping. It's going to drive them a little bit more, put a little bit more oomph in their step to clear that obstacle than it would if the decoy were right there beside it. They don't want that decoy to get away. The complexities of chasing human targets, it really poses a threat to us. It poses a problem in our training scenarios because we've got to make them as realistic as possible. Unfortunately, some of the guys that we encounter out there just don't want to go to jail, and they'll offer physical resistance to us. The use of these dogs minimizes the possibility for injury to us, but the responsibility is on our shoulders to properly train these dogs for a violent encounter. What we've done here is have developed a simulated combat scenario in which we have a foam padded stick that to the dog looks like a menacing threat with it swinging, and it's designed when it makes contact with the animal to not cause any injury but to make a loud popping noise. As we're swinging this stick down on the dog, he doesn't feel any pain, but in the back of his mind he's thinking, what is this thing? And when it makes contact with him, it makes a loud pop. So that in and of itself can cause some confidence issues with them. What we do is we ease the dog into the training and teach the dog that if they hang in there and they overcome this, that they'll eventually win the encounter. And that develops confidence in them that in situations where it might be called on in a realistic scenario in the street. As canine trainers, one of the most rewarding things that we get out of our training when working with these dogs is to watch them figure things out on their own. And as I mentioned before, once they figure it out on their own, those lessons tend to stick with them, and they won't have as much problem when faced with that barricade and obstacle again in the future.